No. Interestingly enough, we have more testosterone than men. Do. But somehow we say they bring the testosterone. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have 8:59.
Ready?
It's still 8:59.
Oh, I've got 9.
You have 9?
I
Okay.
have 8:59. Well, no, I've got 8:59 on my personal, but
Yeah, up here it says 9, yeah.
I mean, I can if you want me to.
How about now?
Today's meeting of the Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board is called to order on July 9th. Welcome, everybody. The agendas of today's meeting are on the wall at the entrance to the chambers. Please remember to turn your cell phones off. To ensure a complete record of the board's actions, we ask that each individual wishing to speak clearly state your name and spell your last name for the clerk. Before we do a roll call, I would like to introduce 2 new board members. Christine Bond is the Executive Director of St. Vincent de Paul Community Kitchen and Resource Center. She has been a partner of the city for several years now, and she has a tremendous impact on the community. She will fill the seat reserved for a citizen who is actively engaged as an advocate for low-income persons in connection with affordable housing. Ms. Bond, please take a moment to tell us about yourself.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I wasn't expecting that. I've been with St. Vincent de Paul for about 4 years, and I've really studied poverty and homelessness and keeping people housed. And with St. Vincent de Paul, that's what we're focused on. So we invest a lot into rent and utility assistance and helping people remain housed, and in deposits to getting people housed, and then dealing with homelessness and trying to help people get off the streets. So that's about it.
Thank you. Our second new member is Sharisa. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sharisa Doty. Ms. Doty serves as Chief Operations Officer for the Clearwater Housing Authority. She has worked with the city on a range of housing initiatives. She is filling the seat reserved for a citizen who is actively engaged as a nonprofit provider of affordable housing. Ms. Doty?
Good morning. Yes, I've been with Clearwater Housing Authority for almost 20 years, will be July. I've worked with the Housing Choice Voucher Program, project-based vouchers, affordable housing, some tax credit here and there, and trying to assist with self-sufficiency programs in our Housing Choice Voucher Program and our public housing properties. So we have about 235 affordable housing, and we assist approximately 1,000 to 1,300 families in the city of Clearwater with housing assistance. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I will ask the remaining board members to introduce themselves and identify the fields they each represent. Mr. Harder?
David Harder, Tampa Bay Neighborhood Housing Services, construction and affordable housing.
Lindsay Dagus Harrison with real estate.
Camille Hepting, I represent employers within the city of Clearwater.
Linda Byers, a Clearwater resident.
And I'm Board Chair Robin Field, and I represent the lending industry as it relates to affordable housing. Before we get any further into the meeting, I would like to recognize that we have a new staff with us today. Jesus Nino is the city's Executive Director of the Community Redevelopment Agency. I believe Mr. Nino would like to say a few words to the board before we get started.
Nothing spectacular, just to introduce myself to you in the community. Jesus Nino, I am the Executive Director for the City of Clearwater's Community Redevelopment Agency and Downtown Development Board, and also the Interim Director for Economic Development and Housing. I just want to say that we do have a wonderful staff that will make sure that everything is running smoothly, and I'm here to support them in any way that I can. I'm here to support you as well. Thank you. Nice to see you, Lindsay.
I know.
Item 2.1, approval of minutes. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the board's May 14th, 2024 meeting. May I have a motion to approve item 2.1?
I'll make a motion to approve 2.1.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Citizens to be heard regarding agenda items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here to speak on items not on today's agenda? If so, please step to the podium and state your name, spell your last name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak on a subject not on today's agenda.
Good morning, I'm Beth Davis, D-A-V-I-S, and I will fill out a card. And I am here to remind you that the City Council is working on budget. And it would be appropriate, there is a council meeting Monday, which is an interesting change. Monday from 3 to 6 is the July council meeting, and a very good time to ask for some things on the budget. And I would ask you to consider, in your own expertise, that it's a good time to ask for a separate housing director while we have the opening, with a focus on housing as one of our top priorities in the city. It's an opportunity that maybe they haven't considered and you think is right. I think it's right. If not that, then ask for an additional spot as a housing liaison to assist in avoiding evictions. I mean, the turning of the month, I saw a lot of furniture on the street this last weekend, people forced out. And lastly, then there's a possibility to talk about the general fund and to request general fund money for the Greenwood CRA housing to start sooner rather than later. Right now, I think the Greenwood CRA is sitting on ARPA money. So asking for general fund money for the Greenwood CRA, where there is land already spotted out that could start some housing sooner rather than later. I would ask you to consider that. And then on my own note, I'm helping a neighbor with her rehab loan, and it is complicated, but it's working. And then I called Kara, I think, to make sure there's still money in the rehab loan process, because sometimes we run out. And she said, yes, there's still plenty of money in the rehab loan. So if you know anybody or any part of your company is working on rehab for residents, don't forget to ask. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Someone else?
Good morning. I'm Kathleen Beckman, B-E-C-K-M-A-N, Clearwater resident. I'm also chair of the Pinellas County Continuum of Care that works to prevent and reduce homelessness throughout our county. And I'm also one of the founding members, along with Beth Davis, of the Clearwater Alliance for Housing. So we're a group that's advocating for more housing and housing options within Clearwater. So I'm here today, for items not on the agenda. I want a second best recommendation that the city take a look at separating economic development and housing, those two departments. I think they're really different. We have economic development that goes from the US 19 corridor to Lake Bellevue to North Greenwood to the beach, and that's really diverse. And it's a full-time job, especially activating downtown. And then housing is an incredibly complex and nuanced and challenging job, especially with the lack of property in Clearwater. So I think it deserves two directors, and I'm wondering if you as an organization here or an advisory board can make a recommendation. So I would ask you to empower yourself, to take advantage of the power that you have as an advisory board. This advisory board, along with the Environmental Advisory Board, are nearest and dearest to my heart. And I ask that you be a lot more active and proactive with the council and speak up and show up and speak up individually. If this speaks to your heart, we need to hear from you. You should be aware that there's anti-camping legislation that goes into effect October 1st that affects our unhoused. Clearwater has about 80 chronically unhoused individuals. We are second only to St. Pete in the calls to 211 that go to Safe Harbor. Safe Harbor is not a shelter, it's jail diversion. And so you need to educate yourself on that and advocate for those things. I would ask you to do that as well. I think you should be aware of code changes and potential code changes that encourage missing middle housing and ADUs, and advocate for that as well. There are a number of things that should be in your wheelhouse that we need you to be more active participants. And then, another thing is we should all be invited to the ribbon cutting of, and I don't know if you were, but the affordable housing development on Cleveland down by the community gardens. That's something that you should know about, celebrate, and we should all be there. I wasn't invited. I was disappointed that I missed that. But I think as all of us who are community activists should be on the top of the list to be there, celebrate and amplify those good things that are happening. Because there are good things, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. But I thank you for your service. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no one else come forward, Ms. Call, do we have any e-comments?
No, ma'am.
We will move on to the next item. Item 4.1, recommend City Council approve the City of Clearwater's fiscal year 2024-2025 annual action plan, which is the fifth and final action plan of the fiscal year 2020-2021 through fiscal year 2024-2025 consolidated plan, to implement the goals and objectives set forth in the consolidated plan and authorize the appropriate officials to enter into agreements with HUD and organizations approved for funding, together with authorization to execute administrative adjustments to the same as needed. Ms. Danya Perez will present this item.
Hello, everyone. Do you want me to say my name as well? Oh, it's okay. So I will be presenting the annual action plan for 24-25. So basically, we'll start off with the timeline. So February 14th, NOVA published, application period opened. March 15th, deadline for application submittals. April 25th was a technical review committee scored and ranked the applications. May 14th, NAHAM approved, staff recommended funding allocations. Then we had on June 9th, draft AAP made available for the public review and comments. There were 2 comments, so I will address them. There are a few comments from Kathleen Beckman and Dennis McDermott, apologize if I just said that incorrectly, in regard to LIFT. LIFT is a nonprofit with a 501c3. We spoke with HUD regarding this activity. We spoke with HUD regarding this activity. This is an LMC clientele activity. 51% of their students need to be at or below 80% median family income limits. I spoke with LIFT confirming that they can provide the CDBG required documentation, which includes total number of persons in the households, income, race, ethnicity. I made it clear that 51% of their students have access to the playground need to be at or below 80% AMI, and documentation is required, and they confirmed. Mr. Dermott, CDBG, his question, his statement, CDBG funds should be used to help address the number 1 social issues facing Clearwater, a lack of fair housing and affordable housing for LMI individuals and households. Beckman's question, are the facade grants targeted to businesses in lower income areas? How will these be awarded? And the response is CDBG facade loan to grant program is under CDBG ED for businesses that meet CDBG Slum and Blight national objective. Businesses must be within the Clearwater NRSA and low income areas. The facade program is application based. They must qualify and follow CDBG guidelines. Beckman question, why did so few applicants get funded this year? And then the response is, best practices are to provide more funding for fewer subrecipients. This decision was driven by multiple factors. CDBG only allows 50% of allocated funds to be applied towards public services and must be either a new or a quantifiable increase in level in services. Then, again, on July 9th, we had the NAHAM recommended council approval for the AAP. August 1st, City Council approved of the AAP. August 16th, deadline for submission to HUD. And then October 1st is when the year starts and ends in September. Available funding. So for FY 24-25, we allocated under CDBG 940-482, home 400,222. We also have some carryover funds, program income from carryover funds from program income, program to be received in 24-25. That was also added. Revolving loan funds for the housing, revolving loan funds for economic development, and there is your total for CDBG and home. Changes to the public facility program. So we did make some changes. So we increased the maximum grant request from 90 to 180. Changes to our public services programs. So we increased the maximum grant for 25 to 50. We established minimum grant requests from 25, and proposed public services must be a new program or one that will be expanded by the use of CDBG funding. So we'll continue with public facilities. Awarded was Willa Carson Health and Wellness Center. So a little background for Willa Carson. Willa Carson and Health and Center is your no-cost medical home. They help uninsured residents receive medical services, including primary care, mental health counseling, nutrition, and wellness services. The clinic's mission is to provide culturally sensitive, quality home care in a friendly environment. We have LIFT. LIFT is a learning independence for tomorrow. LIFT's mission is to inspire and empower people with neurodiversity to learn, thrive, and succeed. They provide their students with exceptional academics, life skills, career training, and opportunity to strengthen social skills and build meaningful friendships. And we have two for HEP's kitchen and dining hall renovation. And I'm sorry, let me backtrack. So the Health Wellness Center, for the rehab, they were awarded $112,250, LIFT $110,330 for the playground for the children. And then HEP received 2 grants, and they have HEP's kitchen and dining renovation for $85,000 and family transition program project for $145,500. And HEP Homeless Empowerment, located in North Greenwood area. HEP's mission is to break the cycle of homelessness. They provide housing, food, clothing, and support services necessary to obtain self-sufficiency and improve quality of life. Our public services, where there was 3 agencies awarded. We have Westcare, Metro Ministries, and St. Vincent de Paul Cares. For Westcare, their program is a Turning Point, and they were awarded $47,024. So a Turning Point, the program they assess homeless, special needs, and persons struggling with substance use and mental health problems by providing counseling, case management, recovery-based services, job support, and housing assistance. Metro Ministries, their program is Neighborhood Hope for the North Greenwood program. They provide housing services and community resources to address employment, education, health, mental health, childcare, financial wellness, and any other related to family wellness to families who are at risk of becoming homeless. St. Vincent de Paul Cares Rapid Rehousing Program works with unhoused households by using hotels to provide a safe place to sleep, while household access assistance to make the transition to permanent housing. Then we have the administration. So we have CDBG, $203,326, and then we have home, $57,222. Sorry, I'm losing my voice now. Economic development. So we have Prospera and We Care. So for Prospera, we're doing the micro enterprises and small businesses. And Prospera is an economic development nonprofit organization, specializes in empowering Hispanic entrepreneurs through training, support, and resources for their businesses, so their businesses can grow and prosper. We Care, which is they have a Boost program, and their program supports daycare providers by helping to build and sustain a healthy child care business model. Under housing, we have a couple different things in housing. So we have creation and preservation of rental housing, creation and preservation of owner-occupied housing. We have down payment assistance through home that we're using, and as you know, it's 80% and below for home. And then we have tenant-based rental assistance, and then we have a SHOTO set-aside, which we'll be working with a nonprofit developer. So under property and acquisition and demolition, we have 100,000 allocated to use. And that is it. Any questions?
Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I do have one question. I think it might have been our last meeting, you gave us an update on the agencies and organizations that we funded last year and how they were doing on the usage of the funds and all of that. Did that come into play at all did that change at all the allocations that we had previously looked at? I think it was a couple months ago, because I know We Care was one of the organizations that hadn't spent any dollars yet that I saw on this list again.
Yes, at that moment they have not, but they have since then, and
Okay.
that does come into play when we do our scoring.
Okay,
So
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In the plan, it identified 16,862 house and 187 households that were planned to receive assistance. Out of those estimates, how many actually have been assisted?
You're talking about down payment assistance? Or assistance
No,
program?
overall, just your overall
Terry?
numbers.
Terry will have to answer that
Okay,
question.
okay. I was just curious about the progression.
Good morning.
Morning, Terry.
Linda, I don't know if I can answer that question, because I'm on the housing side.
Okay.
We have done a lot of DP and a lot of rehabs, but I'm not sure if Linda is picking up your numbers from your CDBG projects that you've done within how many clientele?
So rephrase your question to make sure we understand it.
In the prelude to the action plan, it identifies how many units, households, and how many persons are planned to be assisted. But I'm curious to know, out of those that are planned, how many actually have been assisted?
Well, if you're speaking of the action for next year's, that's our vision for next year. The plan that you had read.
Okay.
That's our vision
So
for
that
next
wasn't
year.
going back to the initial.
For this
5
year, I'll probably have to get back to you because I don't
Okay.
have the numbers in front of me, so we can get back to you on that.
Okay,
So you
that's-
want to know how many people received housing and how many people received,
Well, actually, how many households were, out of the 187 that were planned, how many of those households, I don't care about the individuals as much as the households.
okay.
Linda, I think what it is all the different strategies. For example, home buyers education. We serve a lot of folks coming through for education. We have the rehab strategy. We have now a rental strategy that we're going to work with the Clearwater Housing Authority to assist with security deposit. So I think we're putting all of those strategies together, and that's
Exactly.
where those numbers, the final
And
numbers.
that's where the numbers came from, because that's the way I read it, was all these dollars are planned to assist. Planned, I was interested to know, of those that were planned, how many actually have been assisted? And I assumed it was for the 5-year plan. I don't know.
Correct.
I was just curious.
I think most of those are coming from education, because every month
Okay.
we assist probably over 50 clients through the different nonprofits, Tampa Bay CDC and Clearwater Neighborhood Housing Services, with educating folks into moving from rental into home ownership. And that's one of our goals, is to get folks from, to become homeowners so they can build wealth and pass it on to the next generation.
Right, right.
And I believe we have the website that provides the data, but I'll get that data over to you and
Okay,
send it to you.
Because based on the population of the city, which I really don't know what the actual population of Clearwater is now, at what percentage of the population of the residents are we assisting with these dollars?
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm going with that.
And that's kind of tricky, because with the population, the funding that we receive, most of those funding is targeted to folks that are 80%. So our goal is to assist the very low. There is a small amount of SHIP funding that we can use to assist people that are over 80, but not to exceed 120. So when you look at the overall population of Clearwater, we're not able to help folks on the beach or renting
Anything
or
above 120.
anything above 120.
I think we did a report a few months ago that was reported to us based on the population of the city. A certain percentage meet that 80% or less criteria. That's what I was referring to, the 80% and the 120 categories.
Okay, so basically you just want to do the census tract, figure out how about the population numbers
Yeah.
within 80, and then figure out, okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
Thank you, Linda.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Where are you going?
Excuse me. Any other questions or comments from the board? Does anyone from the public wish to comment on this item?
Good morning again. Do you want me to say my name again?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Kathleen Beckman, Beckman. So I had a couple of questions that I emailed in and got responses for about our spending for this. But a couple of follow-ups to the statements you made. Questions about our population and how many we're serving. I think those are good questions and data points to have on our affordable housing or our housing dashboard. And so I would encourage y'all to look at the dashboard and see what's missing, give feedback. I think it can be very robust. I think I told this group that it's Tallahassee, I think, that has a kind of a model housing, affordable housing dashboard that you might want to look at as well. And then your question too about percentage of Clearwater residents. We had a housing inventory study done, and it was presented to the council when I was serving on the council in January, February. It is a phenomenal report. Not only does it give statistics on Clearwater, it gives statistics, the comparator is the county. And I would encourage you to read it. It's about that thick, but it's an easy read.
I think we reviewed that, did we not?
Did you? Okay. It's got a lot of great
Yes,
data
it
on
does.
it. It's certainly not encouraging data, but it's important data. The question that I wrote in about the lift school is, and let me tell you, I'm an educator. I have worked with neurodivergent children in classrooms. I was there for the ribbon cutting of the lift school. I'm completely supportive of the lift school and what they do. My concern is using taxpayer dollars for a private school. It is a private school, and I appreciate that there are parameters that those CDBG funds, they have to fall within. And for them to say that 51% of their population falls at 80% or below, that's great, and they've got to document it. To me, that seems like a bit of a stretch, but they have to do what they have to do. There is a gentleman who did kind of a deeper dive on their public records, and just to, again, just to make sure, he says that the most recent IRS 990 filing for fiscal year 6/30/22 shows gross revenues of $6,659,939 and total expenses of a little over $2 million, leaving them with an almost $4 million surplus, some or all of which has been used to purchase that location. And, again, if they've got a nonprofit arm and they can prove that 51% of their clientele fall at 8% below, that's okay. But the other thing I want to mention to you is please do some research on, this is a flow through for CDBG and SHIP funds. And when we allocate $30,000 to Prospera, which does amazing work, it's very limited use of those funds and how they can use it because of the reporting constraints and all that. And so I think we should be real champions of Prospera and look at maybe your recommendation of using general funds to supplement that for Prospera so that we can serve, so that more of our Hispanic community can take advantage of that program. It's just something that I think you should be aware of. Thank you for let me go over a few.
Thank you.
Good morning. I have a couple of naive questions. Beth Davis, DAVIS, Clearwater. The rental assistance amount is $321,000, and I think that's exactly what it was last year. And so out of the home money and revenue that we offer to our residents, in this time, wouldn't it make more sense? I know it's not going to change, but as you go forward, wouldn't it make more sense to be giving a lot more money to rental assistance and keep people in their apartments as rents go up? When we don't have much land, we say that all the time, and we have carryover money all the time because we didn't have enough property to develop. The carryover money always fascinates me because I'm not sure when we really spend it. And so is there a way to take some of the carryover money and improve the amount of money we give for rental assistance? Because I'm pretty sure there were no voucher requests this year because we haven't been able to use the vouchers that were applied for a year ago. And surely there is a need for rental assistance in today's economy. That would be my only comment.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Ms. Call, do we have any e-comments? Hearing no further public comment, may I have a motion to approve?
Can I ask something real quick?
Sure.
So this LIFT organization, they have a nonprofit arm, or are they a for-profit? Is CDBG funding available for-profit?
No, it's not for profit. CDBG, the only thing you can do for profit.
Please come up front.
For public services under CDBG, it's a nonprofit.
So they have a nonprofit?
They have a
arm.
501c3.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
A motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Director's report. Mr. Nino, do you have anything additional to report? And again, welcome.
Thank you. I didn't really have a director's report, but after listening to the meeting, again, Jesus Nino, for the record, but after listening to the meeting, this is extremely valuable advisory board. And I do agree with some of the public comments that were given today. For instance, when we do have ribbon cuttings, groundbreakings, and so forth for affordable housing projects, we need to make sure that this board is invited. And I completely agree with that 100%. And so moving forward, as long as I'm at the helm here, you're invited. And we'll make sure that you get those invitations. In addition, we do have a wonderful staff here. One of the things that I'm doing, I'm not just a holding piece until they get a new director. And when that time comes, great. But in the meantime, I'm going to make sure that while I'm here, I bring the best value that I can to the table, and that we do identify as many funding sources out there so that we can combine with affordable housing, in addition to not just CRA funding, but other grants and so forth, and just to make sure that we're also forming those partnerships. Partnerships are extremely critical in the economic development world, CRA world, and housing world, because there is a big need for access to capital, especially to the individuals that are lower AMIs. So I'm a big proponent for partnerships, so not-for-profits, financial institutions. Financial institutions, there's the other branch, the CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions. It can be credit unions, banks, whatever they may be. But those are critical, so I'm going to make sure that staff is very proactive in identifying those potential partnerships so we can get funding. For instance, like the brownfield funding, a lot of people just use it for like phase 1s and phase 2, but if you let those developers know that they can potentially also use that for affordable housing, because you can get reimbursed 100% for building materials for the affordable housing units, from the infrastructure to the last shingle. So things like that, we're going to push hard, at least me, to the staff to be proactive. In addition, one of the things that we are doing in the department while I'm here is we are putting together teams within the CRA, Economic Development and Housing, to tackle initiatives, projects, and not just have it on one individual. So there'll be teams to tackle projects and those initiatives, and one of them is going to be about data collection, KPIs, key performance indicators, and forming dashboards for economic development and for housing. And we'll use best practices from around the United States and anywhere else. And We're not going to reinvent the wheel completely, but we are unique, so we will tailor it to Clearwater. So we're going to be doing a lot of those initiatives. So as far as, I can tell you, one of the things that CRA is doing right now that's coming to the next trustee meeting is that we do have a residential improvement grant program that it's being, hopefully gets approved Monday by the trustees, which is the Community Development Agency Board of Directors, which is also City Council. And this is for 120% AMI and below individuals in the North Greenwood area in accordance with our Community Redevelopment Area Plan for improvements that go above and beyond the programs that the city already has, with like CDBG funding and home funding and so forth. So they will be able to do rehab work to the exterior and some of the interior and even some of the site. So it is a matching grant, but the way I wrote it, because I do understand that access to capital is extremely difficult in the North Greenwood area. Part of that match, I put her in there that the match can be volunteer service. So they can, this is household income based, so individuals can volunteer in the North Greenwood area at approved not-for-profits. Some of the ones that were listed up there, if they're within the boundaries, they can volunteer there. Then as the executive director, I also have the ability to, if this program is approved Monday, ability to waive that for extreme hardships. If someone is by themselves and the household is has some kind of disability or elderly or whatever it may be, but if there's another person in the household that is counted, they can do the volunteer service, but I do have the ability to waive. So we do have a lot of ideas on the table. I'm basically having the staff to be as creative as you can, throw the ideas out there, and we'll see which ones we can realize, and the other ones, we might table, put in the backlog, and others might just not ever happen. But we're being very proactive, especially during my tenure as the interim, and that's my report. I didn't really have a report plan, but after hearing all the comments and wonderful things that all of you bring to the table, I had to say something. So, thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I think you mentioned in your introduction that you're involved with the Downtown Development Board.
Yes, I'm basically, in essence, also the Downtown Development Board Executive Director.
And that's a special taxing district within the downtown area, right?
They have their own millage, yes.
And they have their own millage rate, it's 1%, I believe?
Yes.
And they receive funding based on that millage? So are they involved with affordable housing at all, or is that basically based on businesses and business assistance?
Well, right now, mostly the City of Clearwater's Downtown Development Board, it uses the funding mostly to promote the downtown through events. But since I've been here, I've been basically realizing that DDBs, or Downtown Development Authorities, as other places call them, they can be a lot more creative with their funding. But usually those types of organizations, it is separate from the city, just like the CRA.
Mm-hmm.
I work for the city, but we have interlocal agreements where we do the work for those organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And then the city council sits at as those boards. But we are kind of strategizing internally and with administration to see the fullest extent of what that funding can be used for. So I can't really tell you exactly what that is just yet, but potentially it could be used for housing. But right now it's mostly DDBs or DDAs are usually to promote those downtowns.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but it could be utilized to leverage CDBG home and SHIP dollars if necessary for the benefit of affordable housing.
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do any board members have any final words before we adjourn? We're going to start.
Gina, thank you. Thank you for having me on the board.
I would like to see moving forward that we concentrate on more citizen participation because, our room, has a few folks here. The action plan does identify technically a marketing scenario where we go out, but I'm finding that the citizens of the city, they're not aware of all of these programs. So if we could have public meetings at the rec centers in different areas like Greenwood Rec Center and so forth, where we bring the agencies, that would be Largo, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and Pinellas County together and educate our citizens as to what is available for them to take advantage of these funding sources as we move forward. I know it's a big job, but I think we could educate the folks that live in the city, the residents, of what's available to them, especially when it comes to rehabilitation, down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, and some other programs that were listed, one of which was acquisition and new construction. And I'm not exactly sure what that is. I'd like to learn more about that. Also, it says in the action plan that there are 30 properties available that are either vacant. I don't know if they're single family or if they're vacant lots, or what we could do with those 30 properties, if they're buildable, if they're not buildable. Can they be donated to residents on each side? Can you create a community garden or whatever you need to do with those 30 lots? I was curious about that as well. So, and then when we talked about some of the barriers that are being for multifamily and ADUs and so forth, for example, parking restrictions and so forth, I'd like a little bit more information about that too. So the action plan was quite interesting. It was long and many, many pages. It contained a lot of information. And when you delve into it, you learn a lot about that plan. I appreciate that, what you did with that plan and how it was created and everything, because it had a lot of information in it. A lot of information. That's it.
This is actually bringing up another comment, so I do have two comments. The first one is, last year we talked a lot about the Live Local Act, because obviously it changed kind of the way that some of the, I believe, commercial parcels could be used for affordable housing in certain areas. And maybe this is a question for you, Mr. Nino, but we would love to see maybe an update on, possibly the inventory that exists within the city of Clearwater that could be identified as sites for affordable housing under Live Local. Because to go back to that comment you made about marketing, there may be an opportunity in, defining or identifying specific parcels or specific lots that would be fantastic for affordable housing projects, and that then we could help in some way push out to the public so that there's almost like a call for developers or something like that, because we do have that need. My other comment, and I just wanted to share this with the board in case you weren't aware, Zachary White, who was the executive vice president for HEP, who presented in front of us a number of times, unfortunately passed away last week. There's not, a lot of details other than what was shared by HEP, but I just wanted to make sure that this board was aware, since we've, met him a number of times. And if that's okay with everyone, I thought we could just observe a little moment of silence for him and for his team and his family, and then just go back to what we were doing.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. Lindsay?
Okay. I think when we're talking about the projects that we've done and seeing the different projects, we talked before, we have a lot of new board members about actually going out and getting to see those projects. And I know we've arranged tours other times. I haven't been on one yet, and I know there's a lot of people on the board. So I think if we can look into that again to actually see the work. And I think that goes in line with the invitations to events and things like that. I think it's important for the board to be at those and to know about them as well. But I would like to see the projects that we have, or the upcoming projects that we have. I think that would be great to have a tour to do that.
I just want to remind us of one of my newest favorite words, is the naturally occurring affordable housing, or the NOAA. Our work this past year with the senior repair program, in conjunction with the city's senior repair program and the owner-occupied repair program, has been very enlightening. There's a lot of distress in North Greenwood, in senior homes that are owned, and it is overwhelming. And so I'm encouraged that additional funds, once again in the next fiscal year, are going to be awarded for that. But that is critical. A lot of our families really are one mistake away from losing their home. And, you know, we've tried to help. There was one household that we tried to help that had 3 generations, 8 people in a 2-bedroom home that had a fire-damaged kitchen and a non-conforming bathroom. And, you know, we try our best with what we have, but one mistake and those 8 family members don't have any place to go. And so helping with NOAA on top of everything else that we do, I think is very, very important. So it's always a good reminder for me to come face to face with what the community faces. And so that's a very good reminder. So hopefully we can work this next fiscal year to assist even more people.
May I address that? Project 18 of the action plan calls for a demolition and reconstruction program. It wasn't defined, and I don't know the strategy and how it works, and I'm assuming it's in consideration for demolition of, you know, blighted properties or those that can't be repaired to reconstruct. I don't know how that would work, but it is Project 18 in the action plan.
Linda, can I address that?
Yes, please.
Terry Malcolmson. Yeah, we do have that strategy. However, it's really tricky to address demo with reconstruction. I'm currently working with a family in Habitat for Humanity to demolish and rebuild. But when you get into ownership, we run into a lot of barriers. We run into there is no current ownership. The previous person might have passed away. There is no way in which most times there's no income, the family has no income really to address not so much payment back to us because we can defer the payments, but you're talking about property taxes, you're talking about insurance. When you build a new structure, there's no way you want that person to go uninsured. So yeah, we have the funding, we have plenty of home dollars to address that strategy, but the folks that are there that need the assistance, like the person you spoke about, there's so much barrier to overcome to make it a reality. So that's what we're facing right now.
I know, I agree with you 100%. That's often the case. The affordability factor, you know, especially for, like you say, paying a mortgage back, even if there's no payment, with tax increases and insurance and everything, it can be very difficult to put into place.
So I think I've heard Chuck talk about this one. Is to come up with not so much a home buyer's education, but an education where you can inform folks within the community the way they should maintain, you know, will or probate. That kind of education is needed. But how do we get folks to really show an interest? We can pay for the classes, but are we going to get folks to really attend these sessions? So that's something that we might need to work on with our partners like Clearwater Neighborhood Housing Services.
Neighborhood Housing Service, Gulf Coast Legal, some of those folks could help too. Education is key. You know, so the more the public understands, the more the public knows that these issues can be addressed locally through our organizations. It's a step in the right direction. You know, it'll take a while. It's going to take years. Exactly. It doesn't happen overnight, but you got to start somewhere.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
To the point you made earlier, Linda, though, I think there's 2 separate audiences because you were talking even about having all the agencies in one room. And we've talked before about previous agencies that have received funding support because they understand the process and all of that. They can also be helpful to newer agencies that are coming into the fold. But I think there's also, to your point, a very, very important education component when it comes to the end user, the person that's actually receiving the services. they may not know that there's organizations within the city that work with the city that can help them individually. And they may also not know if they're a part of an organization, or if they volunteer for an organization, or if they've received support from an organization, that organization can also, apply for funds and things like that. So it's a twofold for sure.
And to address, Tara, your comment about taxes increasing, I think we should work with the property appraiser, because if you tear down and rebuild the same square footage, your taxes are not going to go up. But if you add more than 10% of square footage, your taxes are going to increase. So we need to work with Pinellas County on the tax side of it. And then insurance, of course, I mean, who knows with insurance what's going to happen in the future, but, and mortgage financing, Habitat's at 0%, you can't beat that.
Right.
But interest rates are critical too in affordability.
Ms. Bond?
So I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you very much. And I do think it's important to get the word out for people to understand the resources that are available to them. And thanks, Kathleen, for recommending that Tallahassee dashboard. I'm going to check that out. With St. Vincent de Paul, we have 8 conferences in Upper Pinellas County, and we provide rent and utility assistance and furniture and free bedding at about $50,000 a month we provide. And in that process, we have individuals going into the home and doing home visits and assessing the needs and doing budgeting with them and helping them to design a plan where they can stay. But we see a lot of this where people have been living in mobile homes and they're dilapidated and they're going to be kicked out, not because they're not paying, but because it needs care. And it's been pretty overwhelming to us to be doing that. So it's great to know there are other resources, and it would be wonderful to get that word out to people. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I would like to welcome our new board members.
Thank you.
Finally, we have a full board, and very happy to have the diversity that we have on the board. At this time, this concludes our business for the day. The next NAHAB meeting is scheduled for August 13th, 2024. Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.